going. It would seem like we are recording, so that
yes, we are. I see the little signal
see
up there. Yep.
little gadgets going up there. So we'll start. So good morning, folks. It's a sunshiny and spring morning in Saskatchewan where we are taping this interview. I'm Peter Kingsmill, the author of the Avon Lake Mystery Series and a Prairie Representative on the board of Crime Writers of Canada. Perhaps propelled by the pandemic, we've been reaching out on Zoom and YouTube to touch base with some of our authors in our region. And today, I would like to introduce writer and author Joanne Paulson. Joanne has been a writer, been a writer throughout her career and has been widely recognized as an accomplished journalist in the small and intimate Canadian city of Saskatoon, where she makes her home. But now, Joanne, you've gone over to the dark side. You're writing fiction instead of fact, and it's about crime of all things. So tell us why.
Thank you very much, Peter. It's lovely to be here, and it is a beautiful morning. I think we're getting showers, but until then, we will enjoy the sunshine. Yeah. So yes, I never thought I would write a novel. Most of my life, I was very focused on journalism, very focused from the age of approximately 11. I was quite determined that was what I was going to do. And things don't always turn out exactly the way you've planned in life. And after spending it would have been about 23 years, I think, in journalism, I left my position with a particular paper under unpleasant circumstances and went through a very, very hard time afterwards. It was absolutely one of the most dreadful periods of my life. The onslaught of the internet did not help newspapers either, and you could see the decline coming even in 2008, 2009. And I can't say that I decided to switch to novel writing because it was going to be a new career. It wasn't that at all. It was a huge shift to expressing myself in a different way. I couldn't let go of that journalistic urge. And I spent about 4 months in a swirl of misery, insomnia, and weeping under the bed and drinking too much. And then one night I woke up at 3 a.m. and my brain was saying, hello, we have to do something different. And here's the plot of your first novel. And I never thought I would remember it in the morning. But as has been pointed out to me, if you have a small inspiration in the middle of the night, oh, that's the plot twist, or oh, that's the missing character flaw or something. You may not remember it in the morning, but you do remember the big idea. And I remembered it in the morning. And then I started writing. And once the first book was done, a friend of mine said, hey, that was great. I really enjoyed your book. Where's the second one? And I went, second one? There's going to be another one. I didn't know that. Thank you for letting me know. And then I was hooked. And here we are, addicted to writing novels. 5 years later, I think it is now. The first book was published in 2017. So I sort of date things from when that was published more than when I started writing, I guess. It's easier to remember. So
your books in the Adam and Grace series have some elements of police procedurals.
Yes.
You can see that you can read the journalist in there somewhere. And your readers quickly notice, though, that Grace and Adam get kind of cozy.
I would say more than that.
Well, I was going to say that your readers notice quickly enough that Grace, they get really cozy, almost too cozy to be cozy. If you use the novel genre as cozy, and they're not exactly cozy mysteries, but they are really cozy, which is kind of fun. But I don't read many complaints. So I do think some of your reviewers have called attention to that fact, and some are a little bit unnerved, maybe, but not much. Anyway, you know all about this, and you made some choices. So tell us about making those choices.
I don't know how much I suppose ultimately I did make choices. At first they chose me. As I said, I woke up that night at 3 a.m. with this plot in my head. There I was, and became attached to those two characters very quickly. And of course, Grace is a journalist, as
Right.
I am still. I'm a freelance journalist still in Saskatoon. She's a little bit of me. And so I don't know, I suppose I understand how I operate to some extent, but there's also a lot of me and Adam. And I don't know, they just sort of fit together so well. Ultimately, I guess it turned into a mystery romance, if you want to call it that, the first one. It was partly about how the law keeps people apart and how some people behave ethically and some people do not. And I hope that Adam, for the most part, does behave ethically all the way through. And the character is intended to, illustrate certain positive elements of the human personality. And one of those is love, I think. He has gone a long time without finding someone he loves very much. He has some serious issues, dominantly post-traumatic stress disorder. And he needs to be, I have so much sympathy for him. I needed him to be drawn into a relationship where someone could support him, So that's
Okay.
part of it. I also use their love relationship as a foil, especially in the
Right.
second book, Broken Through, to demonstrate how people should behave in real life, as compared to the villains who behave in ways we would not prefer them to behave. And there's a huge sexual component in the second book. It's about murdered and missing women, which has a sexual
Yep.
component on the villainous side. And so I use Adam and Grace's relationship as a foil to show how these things are supposed to turn out, kind of thing. And then there's a love arc through the entire series.
So do you ever have many difficult discussions with your editor? Like, I don't know, maybe you don't have an editor you're married to.
I
Uh,
haven't had difficult discussions on that point with my editor. One of my editors with the second book told me to, pull back. She liked the foil element to it, but she felt I had gone too far, and I agreed with her actually, and I pulled it back, and it became more of a mystery and less of a love story. With the other three, no, I haven't had any complaints from my editors so far.
okay, so let's talk a little bit just about Joanne, regardless of whether she's being a journalist or a writer or making a ham sandwich for Ken. You're married to a goldsmith whose name is Ken, right?
That's right.
And I've had the privilege of meeting him. He's a delightful fellow.
And he's read your books.
He's
Oh,
really cool. I like him better now. Anyway, he's a cool guy, and he's the only goldsmith I've ever met. So that, but does he kind of ever slither into your novels? I mean, I know it seems to me that life informs you, and you make judgments accordingly. But does he sort of slither in there, or can
He
you
does
find him?
in some ways. He is a rare breed, that's for sure. One of a rare breed. There are some elements of Adam that are similar to Ken, although I don't see Adam as being Ken at all. Not really. Adam really is a mixture of several people, including me, including some members of my family, including a police officer who had PTSD, whom I knew, and kind of learned quite a bit from him about how that manifests. So Adam is quite a mixed bag of humans and human experiences, I would say. Where Ken really slithers in, however, is in helping me solve some of the plot problems. So once in a while, I will be so frustrated because I can't figure out how to get from A to B. That's where he comes in. And he's really been an incredible amount of help, and has also helped me a lot with research, particularly on the fourth book. And I have recently also written a historical fiction Western novel that also takes place in Saskatchewan. This is not a mystery, it is out of series, and it's called Blood and Dust. And he was very, very involved in that one. And indeed, he came up with this idea, and I went, oh my goodness, that could be a book. And I just started writing it and it happened, kind of thing, you know. So to that extent, he slithers in a lot, but not as a character so much. Does that make sense?
I'm hearing, and I read Broken Through, and I have a note about it here. I was struck by your attention to detail, which perhaps, since you have a history in journalism, shouldn't be too surprising. But I made a note here. Your novels are not just set in Saskatoon and area. They kind of were born and raised there, and they feel like they really define that whole sense of place thing. You are really a Saskatoon writer, and you embrace that very deeply.
I really am. When I started Adam's Witness, I mean, there were a lot of things that came into my decision to actually sit down and write it. Mostly I was compelled to, but I always felt that there were not enough books written about my city. I wanted to read about my place. I wanted to feel it. I wanted to say, oh, I've been there. And there are some books. There are a few that I can point to that do this very well. For example, Anthony Badalka, another mystery writer from Saskatoon, does that well. There are a few stories by Guy Vanderhaeg where I feel it's a place. Yes. And there are a few others and Gail Bowen wrote, the great mystery writer from Regina, wrote one that was very, very located in Saskatoon, Murder at the Mendel, which is our former art gallery. And but these stories are not legion, and I wanted to write something very, very local, and I wanted to showcase my city, my environment. It was important to me to have a really solid sense of place there. And in my opinion, and no offense to anybody who decides to write in bigger cities, exotic locations, on other planets, absolutely, that's wonderful too. But I think there are enough books, especially crime novels, located in New York and Los Angeles and London.
Yeah, there should be enough of them for a long time, I would think.
Long time, right? Yeah. And I am not that person either. I have been to a few big cities for long enough that I could probably pull off something that sounded like a decent setting, but that's not me.
I'm hoping that you know this, and we'll take advantage of it. But I'm not here to shill for the Crime Writers of Canada. But I was delighted to see that the Engel family has instituted a new award this year for novels set in Canada.
Yes,
and they're really serious about that for every reason that you just expressed.
Yeah, and I was thrilled to see that. I think that's just absolutely wonderful. And I don't think there are enough books that get enough attention from some of the smaller cities, locations, and so on. I think it's time that we sort of took our place there. Yeah,
I mean, you can do Toronto and just hit word replace on a New York novel and off you go.
Pretty much.
But it's where you get some real character in place. That sense of place becomes important. And I have noticed that people, even into my own novels, appreciate the sense of place. In my case, it's not where I live now. It's where I had been partially raised as a child. And that's out of self-defense, which I don't know how that works for you, but if you write about your home, are they going to say, oh, Joanne was out, messing around with some cop somewhere because she's, in bed with this cop, because they know you and they know the context. In my case, I deliberately had to move away from the part of Saskatchewan that I hold very dear, because I was afraid there was too many bodies in the closet, and they would sort of pop out at times when I didn't want them, and I would like to walk down the street without being clubbed. So I wrote it about where I'm not, but it was dear to me, but in a different context.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I have recently served as managing editor for a magazine that is published by our Writers Guild here in Saskatchewan.
Oh, right. Yes.
I was very honored to do so. And one of the authors actually works with the police force. and sent me a note saying, I can't help it. I look at every police officer in the station and wonder which one is Adam, right?
Exactly.
I said, well,
Exactly.
I'm an old lady, and that police officer was on the job probably 30 years ago in a different city. So sorry to disappoint, but he's not.
So let's have a little bit of fun. This has been fun, all of it. But so what would surprise us out here most about you, your life story?
I don't know. I'm really quite a boring person. I work incredibly hard. I have a very stable, loving relationship that definitely creeps its way into the books in theory. So I was a wild child. I think that probably informs some of my stories a little bit, but that was a very long time ago. Um,
No, you're saying you were difficult once?
that's one way of putting it. Yeah, I was on a tear there for a few years. Um, but now I'm a respectable member of the community. So for the
Okay.
most part, so
We're pleased to
I'm trying not
recognize
to bring
that.
things up anymore. Um, I don't think there's very much surprising about me. I sit down and write and let my imagination run wild, and the rest of the time I'm working for a living and trying to survive COVID at the moment.
Yes, and that working for a living and trying to survive COVID, they don't necessarily mesh particularly well.
Yeah.
It's been a challenging year, and you would have thought, well, hey, home. I've been living in front of my computer now permanently. It seems like for a year,
And
and
no,
yet that
exactly.
hasn't made me more productive at all. I'm struggling with my fourth book.
I just started the fifth in the series. I recently wrote a novella in the Adam and Grace series,
Okay.
and for anyone watching who isn't an author, um, authors really have to keep churning out the work if we expect to continue to sell books. Right? It's
Yeah.
just part of the system that you have to remain in the public eye. So, I wrote a novella, and now I'm working on the fifth book, and then of course I just completed the historical fiction. So I have been pretty busy, but not at the pace that I was writing at before. And I am struggling with book 5 at the moment, very much so.
Yeah.
I've rewritten the first chapter 3 times. I've never had to do that before, ever.
Yeah. No,
First
me
chapter
the
has
same.
always
I know.
been right there, and this
Yeah.
time I'm like, how am I starting this damn thing? Um,
Yeah.
I think maybe as to being a surprising human, back to that, I think that there are things about me that I'm hesitant to share, but one of them is that I actually do have post-traumatic stress disorder, and I won't go into the background reasons for it because I will get emotional. But that is something very close to my heart, and I think a lot of people don't see or consider, what the issues are that the author holds dear or suffers from, or deals with, that come out in the books sometimes. And I didn't intend for that part of me to be in Adam. It just happened that way. And it's really, I've thought about this quite a bit, and I wonder about other authors too, if how much of their own experiences and their struggles creep into the novels. Sometimes you don't even know it's happening. It just comes out of you, and there it is in the character. Um, and I think it'd be really interesting to have a group discussion with other authors and talk about that. I'd really, really be interested to see how much of that happens.
Those discussions are so important if you're going to transcend the sort of formulaic genre approach. We have to have this. The book has to look like this and end this way, or else it's not going to sell, because
Yeah,
the last book was that way. So when you transcend that and move to where you have a sense of place and you have a sense of the author in there somehow or other, through there's a personal attachment, there's a real person behind this. It's not just you're not just a wordsmith. It's a living relationship with your readers.
exactly. Beautifully put, Peter. I agree. I think that's the case. I think that the stories that I enjoy the most and I feel the most deeply written by other authors, come from that passionate core, whatever they are really passionate about. I'm sure that a lot of people are like this, and I'm sure you are, but I can smell a formula a mile away.
Yeah.
I don't even have to open the cover sometimes.
Well, yeah.
And
So tell me about covers. You just are redoing your covers, and the ones that I've shown here aren't them. I'll
yes,
show
I
again while
apologize for
you're
that, Peter. I just did them and haven't had time to post them everywhere. They're up on Amazon now, which was the big one, right? Like I had to get them up there as quickly as possible. So I've changed them all. Griffin's Cure is very similar to that one. Adam's Witness is significantly changed. It's probably the most different of the four. It has, so the first crime takes place in a cathedral in Adam's Witness. The bishop is murdered. And in the first cover, that is a cathedral with Grace walking in to discover the body. So there was some confusion around that. Not a lot, but I would say probably 10 to 15% of readers were expecting something perhaps a bit more religious.
okay.
Right? And Adam's Witness, right? There's, a strong, what would you say? Not history, but a component of witnessing and religion as well. And I think that confused some people. So I changed the cover to an alleyway with some shadowy figures running down the street, and then a half face, just a partial face of Grace at the bottom, more or less the way I envision her, the best model I could find, I guess, if you want to put it that way. So I'm quite pleased with it. It will look a lot better in thumbnails and that type of thing for authors who care about these things. It'll pop a bit more. It's much hotter kind of color. And then broken through, I have removed Adam looking sad on the front because, again, some people I think thought it was just a romance novel in that case. So I put the villain on the front, but I did stick with the thunderstorm, although it's a slightly brighter sky. Fire Lake, I could not market that one because,
Really?
Yep, it's too sexy for Facebook and for Amazon, and so I couldn't advertise that one. So that one is quite different as well. I kept the burning shack and a bit of the water, but that was quite different. And Griffin's Cure is the newest, and it's very similar. I didn't change a lot. So they're all a little.
We live in an amazing set of realities, don't we? The people, Amazon, etc. The market apparently thinks it's perfectly all right to burn up somebody's home,
Yep,
but not to hug somebody who's witnessing it.
correct.
That's just weird. But anyway,
Well,
that's tough.
right. It's you can see that Grace's back is not clothed, but I really don't think that it's a terribly salacious shot,
No, not really.
But the monitors and sensors certainly did. So I had to change that one for advertising purposes. I really didn't feel like I had a choice. I also I was taking a course in Amazon advertising, and the people who were running it for free very kindly made a few comments about the book covers that I took to heart. And they also said, well, how long has Adam's Witness been out? And I said, almost 4 years at the time. And they said, oh yeah, it's time to refresh your covers. Absolutely. I went, oh, okay, that's interesting. So so I did. Yeah. And I did them myself, Peter.
Wow.
I did them myself. I'm very proud of myself.
Yeah, you should be. That's cool. I didn't realize that.
And
of course, in about 6 months, you'll tell us how that gave a bump to your sales on Amazon.
I sure am hoping so.
Yeah. Yes, I know. That's
it's early days. Yeah.
So you're just, I think everybody, we know you can get you on Amazon. I know you can be picked up novels at McNally Robinson in Saskatoon, and probably therefore in Winnipeg.
Yes.
And you're available through all the other Barnes and Noble and all the rest of
No,
them?
I'm not.
Okay.
I was going to do that.
Okay.
Long story. Although I am also at the downtown Coles location in Saskatoon as well.
Okay.
I almost went wide earlier this year, and you know, I was just too busy to go through that entire process. I'm still considering it, but I've also had some advice from other authors who are doing extremely well on Amazon, who said, try tweaking this, and let's see what happens. Going wide, you know, yeah, I mean, it's probably a great idea, but you have so many more platforms you have to advertise on. You have so much more bookkeeping to do. You have, you know, this and that, and you're also paying, you're likely, unless you do it directly, which I just can't even imagine having time to do, you have to go through Draft to Digital or something, like one of these organizations that will do it for you. And they get their portion of the proceeds and so on. So I am still with Amazon exclusively for the time being, except for in paperback, of course. Yeah. So I'm going to see how it goes for the rest of the year. And I might be, I'm not sure if I should say this, but I might be publishing Blood and Dust with a publisher. Down to the last 2 days of making that decision here. So that would change things quite considerably as well. And if that happens, I think I'll probably go wide, because then I'll have a presence through them on their channels.
Right.
So I'm not sure if I should have said that, but.
And you do have a website, of course.
I do.
We can just go to your website. Just remember jcpaulsonwriter.com. JC Paulson, right? Yes. Well done. Okay, that's what I got here. And that's Paulson with an O at the end. Yeah, not an E-N. Anyway, it's not hard to find her. You know, Google and you're all over it. So that's perfect. Thank you so much, Joanne. This has been a real pleasure to have you on.
I really appreciate it, Peter. It's lovely to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, you betcha. When we can do things like have coffee or a glass of beer or something, we'll do that.
Happy writing.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I think that worked. You still there?
I am. Do you want me to leave?
No, I just got myself caught here. I'm good to go. See you later.
Okay. Thank you.